on the universe, online healing retreats, and this program. Claim your free registration to daily shows at acoustichealth.com. acoustichealth.com, your portal to the inner realms. Our program starts shortly. Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. And welcome to your new timeline. My guest today brings forth the Pleiadian Collective. And she says we are on a new timeline. It's beautiful. We're going to learn all about it with Nora Herold. Nora, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Loren. Hi, everybody tuning in. Loren, thank you so much for having me back on your program. I so enjoy these conversations that you and I and all of your listeners, all of you tuning in, create together. And that's really how it is. You know, it's not just me and Loren here and the guides and the Pleiadians. It's all of you bringing your beautiful energy and love and light and questions and consciousness to this experience. Yay!
Yay! Hallelujah! Absolutely. It is so beautiful to be here in this space, and we do invite our listeners to this live show to bring us their questions for the Pleiadians, because it is so beautiful, the messages that come forth. Now, in the past, we've talked about Lemuria from a Pleiadian perspective and really creating our life from joy. And this past summer has been really, really, oh my goodness, advancing on our mission. So let's just start right there, Nora. I mean, we could use a lot more adjectives.
I love your beautiful, eloquent, positive take. And, you know, we have to do that, right? Like, highlight the beauty and benefit of Holy Mother. What is happening?
Yes. Exactly, because on the flip side, we are in duality. We are in a duality planet. It's some people there's some fear that's been bubbling up, and so angst has been kind of coming forward, but it's all for us to heal. And this is according to a timeline, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I find it fascinating. Catch us up on what happened and what this new timeline is.
Yeah, I'm hesitating here because I can feel the Pleiadians already want to jump in and take this. So I'm going to let the Pleiadians come through and greet you all, and they'll probably want to offer some kind of an opening process here just to get us all on the same page vibrationally. And then I'll let them share about the timeline jump, and then I'll come back, right? So for those of you who are hearing me channel for the first time, I'm a very conscious channel. I don't leave when they come through. I go in and out of the channeling state very easily. So I'll be back again. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm going to give my throat chakra and a lot of my operating system right now over to the Pleaidian Collective. Greetings. This is the Pleiadian Collective. It is wonderful to have the opportunity to connect with all of you beautiful universal beings of light and love. And Loren, as always, your elevated consciousness, the way you radiate light, your beauty is palpable and visceral And we honor you as the being of service that you are, the incarnate guide that you are, as we honor all of you tuning in the same light. You are all beings of service. You are all incarnate guides. We are all the same. We are love incarnate, right? Each of us wearing a different costume, vibrating at a different rate of frequency, which gives us differing perspectives, but none of us are higher or lower than anyone else. And that's one of the things that this new timeline that you're on is really starting to show you. But before we get there, right, before we really explain our perspective on what's been going on your world for the last couple of years and where you are now, let's just have you all take a breath here. Just inhale and exhale gently. And put your attention on yourselves as you're breathing. And we'd like to run down a process with you that we've been teaching for the last, year or so. A process that we've given the acronym FOAL to, F-O-A-L, FOAL. So as you're breathing here, just give yourself permission to really let yourself feel exactly what and how it is you're feeling right in this moment, without judgment. Physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, just let yourself have it fully, whatever it is. And if there's something that's been bugging you or hurting you or angering you, and you put it aside for a second as you linked up with us initially, bring it back online. We really want you to take this moment and this opportunity to transmute some underlying traumas. So whatever is really pushing your buttons right now, put your attention or your consciousness on it right in this moment and let yourself have the feeling experience that goes along with the set of events or circumstances or whatever it is that's going on. So just let yourself feel. And as you're feeling now fully, your anger, your sadness, your frustration, your joy, your excitement, your passion, whatever it is, right? You can use FOAL for any feeling state you're having. Begin to observe yourself as you're feeling what it is you're feeling. So as you do this, as you activate your observational ability, right? So there's the you, the 3D you that's feeling it, right? You're in it, you're feeling it. You're on that emotional roller coaster or that physical third dimensional density piece of it. The observational aspect of you is your higher self or your fifth dimensional identity. So as you bring that online and you begin to simply observe from a total place of non-judgment yourself in the feeling state, you'll automatically feel just a softening of whatever it is you're processing, right? Because that's what the higher self offers, just this incredible space of love and freedom within which to transform and transmute. So you're feeling and you're observing. That's the F and the O in FOAL. The next step now is to just accept yourself exactly as you are. To release any ideas around perfection, right? Any ideas about what ascension means or should or shouldn't look like, right? Just accept yourself right in this moment, feeling what it is you're feeling exactly as you are. And that begins an automatic transmission of unconditional love. That's the L piece. So the acceptance is the A and the love is the L. And that unconditional love replicates itself and goes to any version of you on any moment of time that needs it, in this lifetime or any other lifetime, right? Because when you're activated, when you're triggered right now, it's never going to be just about this moment or what it is that's happening in your world right now. It's going to be any and all untransmitted trauma from any lifetime that you're carrying that relates to this particular piece. So that acceptance then brings you into that automatic unconditional love of yourself, all aspects of yourself, and you find yourself suddenly transmuting underlying traumas, which then frees you up from within to activate the vibratory rate of joy and begin to create and operate from that joyful space. So this is something we're giving to all of you on Earth right now. We want you really to play with it and use it. And it's something, this is Nora, it's something I find that I can do now because I've done it so many times. I can do it in a matter of seconds, right? I can do it while I'm driving my car. I can do it I always use grocery shopping as an example. I realize that, right? So I'm observing my right. I can do it while I'm grocery shopping or shopping for anything. I can do it while I'm out in nature. I can do it while I'm in the midst of a knockdown, drag-out fight with John, my partner of almost 20 years, right? I can fold while in the middle of my shift. And, right. Good. So it's an integrated process then offers an immediate shift in the internal state, which then offers an immediate shift in our manifestation, in our external reflections. This is the Pleiadians here. So we wanted to start you all off with that today, and we'll refer to it, right? We'll refer to it probably during your questions. We'll run it through again, perhaps, or take you through it again. But the acronym again is FOLD. Feel, observe, accept, and love. Now, as to the timeline jump, right? This is exciting. This is big, exciting news for you all. So back in July of 2016, collectively, you were working on jumping timelines. So let's backtrack even a bit more prior to that. In the winter solstice of 2012, your enslavement contracts expired. All enslavement contracts expired, meaning those beings, the beings you often refer to as the powers that be, they lost the assumption of power on planet Earth. It was no longer assumed that they were going to be in charge. And everything at that point kind of went up for grabs, right? Now, that doesn't mean that the powers that were, who you used to call the powers that be, just said, oh, okay, no problem, I'll give up my power and go home. No, they were still vying for power. But what happened is that opened up the playing field for other beings to begin to interact with you and grab power, and that also opened up the playing field for all of you to activate as sovereign and begin to express your own power. But because you all had been living under the auspices of enslavement for eons on planet Earth, for eons, right? Very few of you could integrate and grasp these changes that rapidly and activate fully as sovereign, and none of us expected that you would, along with none of your higher selves said, the end of 2012 is going to happen, and within a matter of a few years, we're all going to be operating as fully sovereign, right? You can hear Nora laughing. Think about the short amount of time between the end of 2012 and the summer of 2016. When this timeline jump happened, right? None of your higher selves thought that things would happen that rapidly. But you were moving towards collectively creating a higher timeline for yourselves. And in the blueprint collectively that you all had created prior to incarnating, prior to that moment in time, there was a potential timeline that you all thought, yes, we're probably going to get there by the summer of 2016. Well, one of the things that began occurring as your enslavement contracts were deactivated and everyone began to access full power was the scope and breadth of the untransmuted trauma still left in all of you started to become evident. Not just to us, and not just to your higher selves, but to many of you. Many of you, once you got through that gateway and portal of 2012 and discovered that things didn't automatically, radically shift as perhaps you were hoping they would, well, that activated a whole series of thoughts and ideas, feelings and reactions, and a lot of older trauma, a lot of older trauma got activated. And that untransmuted trauma sitting in all of you opens you up, and a group of beings inserted themselves and began to work energetically with some of the humans on your world. And that force of energy caused you to jump timelines in July of 2016. It just took you to a very different place from the place you thought you were going. So you've been on this timeline for the last 2 years or so, and it's offered you the opportunity to transmute trauma at an accelerated rate. It's a massive gift for you all when it comes to the acceleration of your transmutation of trauma. And you are all remarkable in both what you have given yourselves permission to confront and face within yourselves and the collective at large, and also what you've been willing to clear and what you then have been willing to activate within yourselves individually from a place of power. So this summer, 2 years later now, with the advent of all these planets in retrograde and then the 3 eclipses that occurred from mid-July through mid-August, you made that timeline jump you thought you were going to be making 2 years ago. Now, it doesn't look or feel the way you thought it was going to a couple of years ago, because 2 years have passed and things have happened, so some adjustments you have need to make, right? You've needed to make these adjustments. You're not playing out the events as you thought you would a couple of years ago. You're playing them out differently with different characters and different players. You're not yet seeing in your collective reality really strong evidence of this timeline jump yet. That's not going to happen probably until February of 2019. In February of 2019, we see the potential for some pretty big events collectively where you're going to say, oh, all right, we're on the elevated timeline. Phew, right? You're going to feel that. But personally, individually, some of you are starting to see this already right now, that you have broken through. And you're in an easier space where you're giving yourself permission to take things on that felt insurmountable to you maybe a few months ago, certainly a couple of years ago. Giving yourself permission to access the database in the collective consciousness more readily, which allows you to use that information so you're not feeling as isolated and separated as you used to. And that's one of the byproducts of operating on an elevated timeline, is you are operating more as a collective consciousness, more in a state of oneness. So this gives you more access to everything, right? Because it's no longer, oh, that person outside of me knows how to do this, and I know how to do this, and I'm limited to what I know, and they're limited to what they know. No. As a collective consciousness, well, you have access to anything and everything that everyone is capable of within the context of the collective consciousness. So we're seeing a lot of you suddenly saying, oh, well, I can do this. That's something that you thought was really hard or challenging or difficult for you just a short time ago. So that's just one example of how personally you're going to be finding yourself navigating through these moments in this and on this higher timeline. Woo, yay, huh?
Yay. Okay, well, we are feeling it, and so we'll use some examples of that, because it does feel like whether it's, we could call it downloads, where we're getting this inspiration, or suddenly an idea. Maybe we had the idea a few years ago, or maybe it was a learning curve and we didn't take action on it, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I know exactly what to do. And it's with such ease and grace as well. So I think that's really beautiful. That's what this is. It's an elevated timeline where we are taking our power back. It's stepping into our sovereignty.
Yes, and the piece that's so key for me is we're moving out of isolation and separation and moving into operating as a collective consciousness. So it's going to be really important as we're all observing the world around us to look at those leaders, right? Because we're still using our geopolitical environment and those players and characters to take center stage and give voice, in part, to what the collective is thinking, feeling, believes, understands, and knows, right? So when we see leaders promoting separation and isolation and competition and dense third-dimensional models and ways of being, right?
Yes.
Well, they're still operating on the lower timeline, working with those beings that want to control out of fear and want to manipulate and want to eat up as much energy as they can. When we see those other beings speaking about collaboration and supporting one another and taking care of each other, really driving home the understanding that when we take care of the weakest among us, we're taking care of ourselves, because the weakest among us is ourselves. That is us. We're one. Then we see, that's that breakthrough in that consciousness, right? That's that elevated consciousness. And that doesn't mean those beings are going to be perfect, right? They're still running human bodies with ego issues. So we're going to see those ego issues get activated at times, right? We're all on our own individual path of integration and re-ascension. But we can really observe, who the players are and what level of consciousness they're working on right now.
Okay, well, this is a time for people to really step up as leaders. I know many are feeling that call, and so I love it because it's not a resistance to anything, but it is being that voice for what we love. So it's a challenging and very interesting situation. Can we ask about, now we never really talk about conspiracy theory or the cabal, because we are aware that it is there, and so we take our sovereignty and we live our passion to override any of that control. But let's take a quick moment, and maybe you can offer some perspective of that cabal. You said that the enslavement contract did expire. So are there any, is there any intel on this cabal? It's kind of hectic. We see the U.S. president. That's a divided story. We don't know quite what to make of it, but we do know certain things really are getting shaken up. So that's why it's important to, instead of pointing fingers and blaming, it's important to really live our passion and bring forth our purpose and our mission. So can you speak to that cabal and what we see as a collective to override it?
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here. First, we don't even like using the word cabal any longer because it's been co-opted on your worlds. It's been co-opted by another group, right? It doesn't mean what it used to mean, right? That's why we like to say the powers that were. That's a much more generalized term, right? It's a much more generalized term, and it puts those beings exactly where they are, on a level playing field with you all, right? So when we say the powers that were, we're referring to the Anunnaki, their reptilian counterparts, and the Earthlings that were working either consciously or unconsciously with those beings. And many of your Earthlings have been working unconsciously with the powers that were, with having no conscious knowledge of it whatsoever. That is a huge point, everyone. That is a huge, huge point. I think that there's the assumption that when our politicians get to a certain level of quote-unquote power, that they're given all the information. They're not. And because of the vulnerability of those positions, the positions that they've landed in, it makes them even more open to manipulation and control by fear beings. This is the first time I'm really observing it this way myself, so just know that, everyone. That's a fascinating piece for me to integrate. And I think it's important. It's really important to integrate that because we're still really vilifying some of those beings, right, from our past and our present as consciously working with these fear beings to enslave humanity. This is the Pleiadians. There are very, very, very few Earthlings on your world. You could probably count them on your two hands, and that's it, who have conscious contact with these other beings, Anunnaki beings, right? Very few.
Well, that's great news.
Yes, so you can begin to see then how the beings that you've always wanted to vilify and are continuing to vilify are also enslaved, just as you are, and have been enslaved just as you were. Of course, you're not anymore, but you are, but you're not, right? You still are. You're still playing the enslavement game, right? You still have to make money to pay your bills, right? That is an enslavement game, right? So you're still playing those games, right? But what's changed is you no longer have to. It's just the new ways, the higher ways of operating, you're still developing collectively. So you're still running the old programs while you build the new programs. And as you build the new programs, it's going to become clearer and clearer to you which earthlings are aligning themselves with these elevated timelines. And you will be amazed, some of you, at who it is you see aligning themselves with a higher timeline. And if all you want to do is project onto them the identity of who they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you're going to miss the opportunity to benefit from their input. Oh, this is going to be so hard for some people, that piece. I mean, I can feel it in myself, right? There are people I think about in the past, right, that have held office who potentially could align with this higher timeline and begin to align with the elevated consciousness and really start to bring that energy through. And that will mean work for me in releasing my stories and my attachments to who I believe they are. But isn't that what existing in the moment truly is? As we teach that and preach that, those of us, that are doing this work, isn't that what that truly means? To exist in the moment is to confront that being exactly as they are in this moment.
And that totally transmutes that as well. Yes. Well, a question coming from our audience would be to how do we align with the higher timeline? So talk about really, I mean, you did mention, the Pleiadians mentioned that this is about, higher consciousness. It's acting from a higher perspective and collaboration, unity consciousness, taking care of the weakest link among us. I've even witnessed people close to me making a shift and being inspired to, instead of blaming something that our government or the powers that are destructing policy, well, a new nonprofit is being created to counteract that. So that's beautiful. Yes. So is that aligning with higher timelines is really taking the high road all the time, living in the heart.
Well, it is, and yet, if you have trauma to transmute, you cannot avoid that piece, right? So you have to work in tandem. It's not wrong for you to look at some of the policies, right, that will use the children being separated from their families, because universally that's you're all pretty much agreed upon that is horrific to you all, right?
Inhumane, yes, inhumane.
Yes, exactly, right, yes. And it activated a massive amount of untransmuted trauma from other timelines, right? Holocaust experiences, other genocides, other kinds of the destruction of the first earth. We can go on and on. The timelines and the trauma that got activated by that one piece. So already you can see the benefit of it, right? But there's no benefit personally, viscerally, for the beings living it, right? This is sometimes some of the problem that we'll see with spiritual bypassing, right? Where beings on Earth, where Earthlings will impose a spiritual understanding only of what's happening and ignore the visceral pain and reality of the experience. You can't do that and integrate and reascend, because the integration process is about running your higher energy through third dimensional density, which means you got to acknowledge everything that is taking shape and form in the third dimension. And remember, if it's happening on your world, if it's happening in this universe, you're a piece of it. You're a part of it, because we're all one. So there's that, right? So that's occurring, and you all had it, and you're still having your reactions to it, and it's still happening, right? Didn't change, hasn't gone away. Your attention was directed elsewhere, right? As it often is. Other things have happened. That is still ongoing. So what you have to do is, first you have to give yourself permission to fully feel your feelings about what is happening on your world around you and what you're agreeing to. Because as sovereign collaborators and co-creators, on some level, you are saying, I'm participating in this, right? So you have to find within yourself your own feelings, your anger, your frustration, your powerlessness, your own racism, right? Your own fears. Your own fears of being in different bodies. And one of the things that's really come up for you all right now are the untransmuted traumas that date back to the extraterrestrial race wars that occurred prior to and then during the Orion Wars. So, before Earth and this amazing experiment on planet Earth, in the third dimension, this universe was very segregated. Pleiadians all look alike, Lyrians all look alike. We're giving a rudimentary understanding of the universe here. It's not really this simple, but we want you to see it this simply right now so you can better understand what the hell is going on your world when it comes to race, racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, all of the hates and the fears and the phobias, the homophobia, all of it, right? So it used to be like there'd be a whole planet of homosexual beings, and they were all homosexual together, and they all looked the same way, and that was it, right? And then there's another planet over here, and they're all white. Let's say the Lyrians, right? They're all white. All white. White hair, white face, white body, all look pretty much the same, right? And then you've got, let's say, a planet in the Pleiades star system, and they're all brown skin, right? And they all lived separately, and they didn't have space travel, and they didn't know of each other's existence, so they didn't know there were differences in this universe. And then they all developed technology, and they all started to travel and ran into each other and went, holy shit, they're really different from me, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid of that being that looks different, and I want what they have. I want it. I want their lands, and it just exploded, right, into the extraterrestrial race wars and the Orion Wars, which were beings who had different belief systems, different ideologies, different colored skins, etc., fighting throughout the entire universe, and part of the destruction of the first Earth came about as a part of this, right? That was a part of this whole thing. So then that all came to this planet via not just your memories, but your genetics. So you're all seated here on planet Earth from all of these different star systems, carrying with you the memories of these different wars. And any being who is running any kind of racism, and you all are, let's just say it, you all are. You all have it in you. If the collective is playing it out, you've got it. So that's hard for some of you to hear, right? Because you want to say, no, I'm not. I'm really open-minded. No, if it's on your world, it's yours. It's still yours. Doesn't mean you're not aware of it. Doesn't mean you're not willing to confront it. Doesn't mean you won't speak out about it, but own it. Claim it. If you claim it, you can change it. You can shift it. If it's outside of you and that other asshole, you can't do anything about it. You're powerless, right? So claim it. Claim it all. Look at this. It's our universal history and universal trauma that we're in the process of clearing and transmuting so we can come together, so you all can come together on planet Earth as one. You cannot take your place as a galactic citizen fully until you do this on your world. You can't interact with the rest of your galaxy and all the other beings out there now when you're as fragmented as you are on your world. Can't happen. You're going to have to unify here first. So this is a big part of what you're doing right now. I feel like I got off the subject there. This is Nora. I feel like you asked a question and then we went a whole other direction. Okay, well.
No, that was really fascinating about the ET race wars, so it's within us. Well, it brings up a question then, and then there's questions from our audience too about, how, what we can do for the human body and things like that. But first, let's talk about, cleaning up our planet, right? We are, I would love for the Pleiadians to offer anything about, please do.
This is Nora, because I've looked at it so much myself. It's what you were just talking about, Loren, right? With the people that you know developing a nonprofit, right? Yeah. It's going to be the same exact way, right? As our systems continue to crumble and fall, right? Right now, right in this moment, we have this massive storm system coming on to the shores of our country. Hell, I myself, just 9 months ago, evacuated my home in Ojai, California, due to what was the largest wildfire in California state history at that point in time. What's astounding is, since then, since 9 months ago when I had to evacuate, there's a fire now that's surpassed that. Right? We've had two wildfires. Right? We've had two wildfires in California, both which have been termed the largest wildfire in California state history over the course of 6 months' time. Yeah, it's clearly we are changing our climate. Part of it is simply evolution. Part of it, a very small piece of it, is the natural evolutionary process that we are experiencing on our world. Then a lot of it, yes, is exacerbated by our carbon emissions, but it's not even really just our carbon emissions. This is the Pleiadians. It's exacerbated by your isolation and your separation, and we'll just say it, capitalism, which is isolationist, enslaving program. It keeps you at war with one another at all times, competing, each man for himself, man, woman. But we'll say man, really, because, right, isn't that how you say it? Each man for himself, and women, beings aligned with female bodies, are still on a lower rung on your world than beings aligned with male bodies in the collective consciousness. So that's something else that's coming up right now radically for healing and transformation, is the balancing of the yin and yang energy and the clearing of that trauma, right? So you've got that being addressed. We did want to jump back to one thing as we were talking earlier. So when you look at the events that are happening on your world around you and you find yourself triggered and activated, let's say it's new allegations against a sex abuser on your world, right, who's molested and raped hundreds of women under the auspices of misogyny, which is held under the auspices of the patriarchy, which is an enslavement program meant to keep the enslavement contracts in place, right? So when you look at that and you feel triggered or activated by that, feel, observe, accept, and love, do your own internal work, and do it for the collective. Feel into the trauma in the collective, the massive amounts of anger and powerlessness and frustration. Observe it, accept it without judgment, and love it. Love it exactly as it is, whether it sits in you or sits around you. Although if it's around you, it's in you. If it's got your attention, it's yours. Then you're operating as the incarnate guide you came to be. Then you activate the vibratory rate of joy, the other frequencies we've given over the last few years, confidence, excitement, freedom, all the rest, right? And then you create from that place, which puts you on the elevated timeline. If you don't do that transmutation of trauma, you're going to use your untransmuted trauma to as the foundation for your creations. Yes, you'll still activate, right, joy and freedom and happiness and all this yummy stuff, and then underneath there will be like, fuck the patriarchy, right? Those feelings are in there as well, and you're manifesting from that place, and then what you get is a much watered-down version, a lower vibrational version of that elevated, higher version you were looking for, because your untransmuted trauma is still replicating itself in your world around you. So when it comes to the climate change issue and the planet, my sense of it, Loren, as I've been looking at it, is, you know, we're going to get to the point where and we're not there yet, clearly, right? But we're going to get to the point where we're going to feel like, okay, it's gotten worse. And then suddenly new systems, these brilliant, bright new systems are going to appear as if out of nowhere. And of course, they won't be out of nowhere. Some of these technologies will have been developed 100 years ago, right? And they just weren't accessible to us due to the enslavers and capitalism and all the other things we all agreed to here in the game of third dimensional density. So we could in part transmute all of this underlying trauma from the extraterrestrial race wars and shift the very nature and fabric of this universe, which is what we're doing as well. It's not just about Earth, it's the entire universe.
Oh boy, that is so comforting. And so I just want to point out that we really are already seeing this cleanup, and we're going to see it more. We have to read between the lines. It's not in the mainstream media. But what it's like one day I was like, straws, okay, plastic straws, they just do not make sense anymore. And more people realize that plastic straws no longer make sense. And so then it's like, why aren't there straws made out of rice paper or seaweed? And then I went and Googled it, and they already have it. And so we're starting to see Kickstarter campaigns or crowdfunding campaigns that support these new systems. I mean, there's toothpaste pills, so you don't have to have plastic going into the landfill. There's younger shampoo bars. Yeah.
So you don't have to have a plastic bottle of shampoo. You have this nice little bar that you wash your hair with, right? Yes, they're all over the place. And what's happening is exactly what you were just saying, Loren, is individuals like you, right, suddenly say, I wonder if there's a healthier alternative to this, right? So it's not just that the alternative has been created. It's that telepathically, individually, we're picking up on these creations and starting to look for them on our own without being told to do so.
Ooh, that gives me chills.
Yes, right? That's so freeing. That the powers that were, they can't do a freaking thing about any of this.
Yes, we've talked about this before. This is a movement of the heart, and we've had this on our planet many times before, but this is a movement too big to be stopped. And as the Pleiadians call it, it is the re-ascension. So we're going to get to a point where it's going to filter out. So as we transmute, so we're in this process of, first being aware of the triggers and transmuting it with full, right? And activating new frequencies of joy and confidence. We're going to get to a point then where, because these new systems come about and these new ways of being, we're not going to have any tolerance for any of the older systems. Particularly, a big one would be the mortgage. Let's call it a new system, like a home loan. We can call it a home loan instead of even using that word mortgage. So eventually, those systems, we're already seeing them crumble, but eventually they're not going to, those inhumane things, like a mortgage it's not just 5% interest on the amortization schedule. If you really look at the interest, it's like 150%.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we're not going to tolerate those things anymore.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yes. This is the Pleiadians here, and let us jump into one. You asked about conspiracy, and we want to just address conspiracy theories, and they exist for a reason. They exist because you're not being given the whole truth, right? So you all start to say, yeah, that's bullshit. That story does not fully resonate, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is, because you have been lied to so often, so many times, and there's so many lies out there, it's pretty much impossible for you all to figure out what the real, quote-unquote, real truth is, in part because there is no real truth. There is many versions of reality as there are beings to interpret reality. So here's our take on conspiracy theories. Have some fun with it. Let it open you up. Let it get you questioning. Let it get you looking. Do not let it sink you. And we see this for some of you. You get stuck in the conspiracy place, right? And then suddenly you're spending all this energy trying to figure it out, which saps you dry, keeps you in fear, keeps you powerless, and keeps you unable to operate as sovereign and as a creator. Because as a creator being, as a sovereign being, well, who gives a shit? It doesn't matter, right? As a sovereign being, it does not matter. As a third-dimensional earthling feeling manipulated and controlled, this stuff really matters. As a sovereign being, it doesn't. Yes, I really watch it in myself, right? 9/11 was the big one for me initially. That was the one where I was like, oh, holy shit, we're being lied to about everything. I could feel it as it was happening. As I was watching it play out on my TV, I could feel the lies in my body, right? It took me into the conspiracy theory place for a while, right? I really dove in, and then I realized, oh, okay, that's a phase, and I think it's a really important phase that we go through of awakening our consciousness, but it has to be perceived as a phase, not the end all and be all, because conspiracy is all about trying to figure out, right? There's a weighting to it. There's a eventually we move on as sovereign and say, oh, look, I can still see over there where that manipulation and lie is happening, and I'll have my feelings about it, but I'm not going to spend 1,000 hours on the internet trying to figure this out, right?
Well, okay, so questions from our audience coming in, and this is a big one too. Let's talk about, when we're talking about unity consciousness and sharing and collaborating, we can feel that we're moving into this as we share ourselves, like when we share our skills and our talents with others, our time with others, whatever that may be, to be in service. We're still in a realm where we need currency. So can you talk a little bit about moving beyond money? I guess first it would be shifting our own energy about money to be able to allow it to flow into and out of our lives, right? It's called currency. And then what would you say about anything like the new cryptocurrency? In my mind, it's just another avenue for people to put their dreams and hopes of getting rich quick with something. It doesn't really change the energy of money.
I agree with you on cryptocurrency at this point. My perspective has been it doesn't feel, at least at this point, much different than the stock market does to me and investing in the stock market. And that's the way I've seen people interrelating with it and interacting with it. Now, I think part of the reason for that is because we have not moved beyond currency yet, right? So any currency we have is still being dealt with as currency and is still being dealt with as something that exists outside of us, outside of our energy field, outside of our sphere, outside of our bodies. It's this other thing, right, that we hope gets bigger, that is isolated and separate from us. This is the Pleiadians here. So that's the first step for you all, is to remember, not in your heads, not theoretically. So this requires real transmutation of trauma work. Whatever is sitting inside of you, whatever trauma is sitting inside of you that still causes you to play out separation from source, right? That you are separate from source. As you clear that separation from within, you start to remember in a visceral way, I am my own source of prosperity, right? I'm my own source. It's within me, all of it. As you all begin to come online with this, money will just disappear. Now, what will go hand in hand with this as well, are the activation of fifth dimensional technologies and your ability to manipulate your reality around you at a faster and faster rate. So money really beautifully kept you in the third dimension and along 3D linear time. It slowed things down for you all so you could play out the illusion of being in the third dimension, right? You couldn't just, because you needed money to get from here to there, whether it be put gas in your car or get on a plane or whatever it is, you had to make the money and make the plans and, right, it all fits so beautifully. Money with time, right? You see how they're interconnected, right? Oh, I'm going to have to wait, right? So as you start to transcend the linear time, which you're doing, and operate as multidimensional beings, you have to let go of wanting more money. You have to let go of it completely. Ideas around money will keep you in third dimensional density. That being said, yeah, you're still all operating in third dimensional density in part. So while you are, I am my own source of prosperity. This is the way I like to run this exercise, and I am no expert at this yet, okay? I will just fully share that piece of information. I'm on my own journey with prosperity and abundance, as you all are. And living the life of a professional channel for 20 years has often not been easy financially, okay? Like, I like to share that up front because part of the thing I do is I use my personal experience to force me to access more tools, more information, more technology, more understanding, right? So part of it is like, how am I going to pay this bill? Right? Okay. Then that's not so much the truth of it any longer. I've moved beyond that, but that used to be my truth, right, when I was much younger, and then Pleiadians coming in, talking with me about prosperity and my own understanding of prosperity and money, right? So what I do is anytime I allow money to leave, right, give myself the illusion of money leaving my reality, my space, my own source, I see it as returning immediately to me, right? So if I'm going to the bank to get money out for my rent, well, that rent is not really going to my landlord. It's coming right back to me to provide me with the opportunity to live and expand and grow and play and have walls and a roof, right? That's going right back to me. When I go to the grocery store and pay for food, that money is coming right back to me in the form of delicious meals and nutrition and health and prosperity. So on and on. Start to really have this conversation with yourselves as you spend. You don't let it be going out. It's coming right back in. And when you're in 5D, this is the Pleiadians, when you're in 5D space, well, there is no illusion of going out and coming right back in. It's just, boom, I'm creating right now with my energy and the energy next to me. I'm collaborating. So you could say money is the energy that you're collaborating with right now. And yet, don't let it leave. It's returning, because as it returns, it replicates, it grows, just like anything else you welcome into your space and your reality.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, shifting our energy on money and really getting rid of belief systems, too, about money. So really a big job there. Mm-hmm.
There's the other thing I have found, too, this is something that I've really had to work on in this life, and I see quite often. People often tell themselves the story that they have to wait to have the life they want to have until they have the money to have the life they want to have. All you do in that moment is create the state of waiting. For me, always what has worked is I start to give myself the life, the experience, the whatever it is I want before I actually have the full physical means to do so. And as I give it to myself, the means, the money, right, shows up. Not magically from out of the universe or the guides, right? It's from me. I've said, I want to move to California, right? I did this 14 years ago with John. John and I, 14 years ago, picked up and moved from Chicago to California because we wanted to. We didn't, quote unquote, have the money to do it. If I waited to have the money to do it, well, I'd still be living in my basement apartment in Chicago that I was paying $400 a month for, you know, because that is the way I've been forced to operate in this life, or I've forced myself to operate in this life. Now, this won't be true for all of you. Some of you will have a different path, but a lot of you have this path in part because what you're trying to remember is existing in the moment, is saying yes to the moment at hand, and remembering that as a creator being, if you embrace the moment fully and what it is you really desire, the way to bring it about shows up. You bring it that way about. But your mental body won't construct that path for you. This is where you have to let go of thinking completely and, quote unquote, let the magic happen, you know, which is really just you, your creator abilities coming online, and your mental body can't really grasp all of that. And I continue to live this way. I continue to live the life I want to live. It's very opposite from how I was programmed to live as a little girl and as a teenager and even as a young adult. I was raised in the suburbs of Chicago in a very white middle-class environment and very programmed to go to college, you know, start working, make money, and then have the life I wanted. I have had to continually deactivate all of that mind control in myself to give myself the life I want.
Yes, that's the name of the game, and it's not always so easy, but the deactivation of those programs, again, we go back to full and really using that to get it out of our physical body. Wow. Okay. Well, there's some questions from our audience that I'd love to have you address. Yay. Okay. There's a full gamut. So right now I'm going to get to Carolina's message that says, how can any of us directly connect with the Pleiadians, and what can we do to directly assist them in our everyday lives?
All right, this is the Pleiadians here. So to answer your question, if you desire to be directly connected with us, that means you already are directly connected with us, right? You're already acknowledging that you feel that connection to us, which means we have already made ourselves available to you, because we have made ourselves available to any and all of you who desire to experience contact and connection with us. So connecting with us is just the same as connecting with any being that exists in a higher dimensional state, whether that being be another extraterrestrial collective that's in a higher dimensional vibration, or that being be a spirit guide or a guardian angel or a fairy or any of the other many different kinds of shapes and forms of higher dimensional beings and entities that are available to you, right? So you first put your attention on your own operating system, and you ask yourself, how is it that I normally source information on planet Earth? Am I more visual? Am I more of a wordy kind of person? Am I more auditory? Am I more feeling based, or am I more am I more of kind of just a knowing person where I just know things, right? Ask yourself those questions to get a better sense on, and you're probably a combination of them, but you'll find that you probably are stronger in some areas and then less stronger in other areas, right? So you start to identify, oh, okay, I'm more seeing based, which means I'm more clairvoyant, and I'm more feeling based, which means I'm more clairsentient, or perhaps I'm more hearing based and wordy based, more verbal and vocal as Nora is, that I'm more clairaudient, or I'm more knowing based, or more of a know-it-all, right, as Nora is as well. She's laughing here. She'll let us say that about her. So I'm more claircognizant, right? So these are the different ways you run your extrasensory abilities, right? So you start to identify that first, and then you say to yourself, all right, so I would like to have direct contact with Pleiadian Collective, and I have discovered, and what I know about myself to be true is we'll just use clairvoyant. I'm more clairvoyant. All right, so I'm going to close my eyes and take a breath and ask myself, well, what color is the Pleiadian Collective? And just look at what color comes into your third eye, or what colors you see in the space around you, and there we are. Hi, we're right here, right? We're this color. So you can do this with any of the other ways of establishing and recognizing contact consciously, and then begin to notice when you notice we're around. We're always around, so you have to notice when it is you're noticing we're around. It's not that you're noticing when we're around. It's that you're noticing when it is you're noticing we're around. And as you start to do that, well, start to have conversations with us. Ask us some questions. We ask that you not ask predictive style questions, right? So don't ask us when something is going to happen or will it happen, right? Ask us instead, how can I best create this thing I desire? Or I need some help and healing with this in my life. Let us be here as guides and friends and companions, not psychics. Don't treat your guides as psychics, because you are creative beings. You're creating your future moments, and you're operating right now as multidimensional beings, meaning you're creating so many potential realities right now in this very moment in time that predicting really is a waste of time. The other thing that, I think for me, what was so obvious to me initially when I began to establish conscious contact. So I know I had contact with the Pleiadians, since birth, right? That's part of my contract here. But I didn't put my consciousness or attention on their presence in my life until I was 29 years old. That was back in 1996. And in that connection, when I became conscious of their presence, what came along with it was this just massive amount of unconditional love. It was nothing I had ever felt before. I experienced it in my very first contact with my spirit guide Mirando, and then continued to experience it every time any being or collective linked up with me. So it was Mirando consciously first, and then the Pleiadians very shortly after, meaning within a matter of days. The Pleiadians, I had established conscious contact with the Pleiadians. The love generated by these higher beings is palpable and visceral and unmistakable. You allow that experience for yourself in your body. You will know that you're interacting with, engaging with, in their presence, using their energy, being supported by their energy in your lives.
That's beautiful. And so there's questions here on people rejuvenating their physical body. We've had people with surgeries or going through challenges or pain. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about the physical body then. Do the Pleiadians see the physical body getting a reprieve from pain and illness?
Well, this is the Pleiadians here. You can use full for any physical experience you're having as well. So it's not just to be used for emotional, energetic, or mental. You can use it directly in your physical body. As creator beings, you are always creating what's happening in your body, which means you can always change the creation of what's happening in your body. And yet, once something has manifested for you in your physical body in third dimensional density, because in part you are still walking along third dimensional lines of time, it sometimes takes you longer to shift your physical experience than it does your energetic, emotional, or mental experience, right? So it all starts in the energetic, and then it filters down into the emotional, the mental, and finally the physical. And typically it filters into the physical because you really need to get your attention with whatever's going on, right? So if you've got pain in your body, if you've got an illness, if you've got whatever it is you've got going on, run that process of full, which means you have to take yourself completely out of judgment, which is very hard when it comes to your physical experiences. You all think when your bodies go down, you've failed in some major way, right? You haven't. You're just transmuting trauma on a cellular level. That's all you're doing. It's just transmutation of trauma work that's occurring, and it's occurring in the cellular, on the cellular level in your physical bodies. And some of these traumas that you're transmuting can only be transmuted on the cellular level, meaning you've already done the transmutation work energetically, emotionally, and mentally, and there's a cellular piece that's got to be cleared up before you can integrate your higher self more fully and continue to walk your path of re-ascension. So anything that happens in your physical body needs to be celebrated as an opportunity to simply transmute more trauma. Same is true for anything that you're experiencing emotionally, mentally, energetically, right? Yay! Just another opportunity to transmute underlying trauma. Now, the other thing that's occurring, and this is so massive for you all, is you are shifting within your cellular structure from carbon-based entities to crystalline-based entities, right? The carbon-based entity aligns with the third dimension. The crystalline-based entity aligns with the fifth dimension. Your bodies are processing these codes, which means an acceleration of transmutation of trauma work in the physical bodies right now to facilitate that shift from carbon-based to crystalline-based. And let us say, we don't know when this is going to finish out, and we don't want you to be attached to this needing to happen in this lifetime. For a lot of you, it's not going to finish out in this lifetime. For a lot of you, you're going to do your part here as you are right now, and what you've already done is magnificent, right? If all you do is what you've done up until this point in this incarnation, you did way more than you've ever done in any other lifetime before. We want you to really take a breath on that and feel the enormity and the magnitude of what you have taken on here in the integration of your fifth dimensional consciousness into your third dimensional vehicle and the shift of your very vehicle from the inside out. It's never been done before, ever, in this universe. It is a massive undertaking, a massive task, and yes, at times your bodies are going to quote-unquote suffer because of it or from it, but that quote-unquote suffering is a part of it because you're accessing underlying suffering as a part of the shift. You know, one of the things included in my package is transmission from the Pleiadians and a process that facilitates the cellular changes that we're going through in our bodies and the shift from carbon-based to crystalline-based energy. And I remember when they first started talking about that, right? I can't remember how long ago it was. It was years ago. And I remember thinking, like, that just sounds like crap to me. I don't even know what that means, right? I mean, my mental body could not even begin to grasp that idea of shifting from carbon-based to crystalline-based, right? I was like, all right, that sounds like something I would see on Star Trek, maybe some weird sci-fi thing, right? I have a much better understanding of it now, right? This is an energetic shift that's occurring within the very structure and nature of our being. It's an elevation of our cellular structure and the light codes within our cellular structure that takes us literally physically to a higher vibrational space and plane where we're no longer as solid as we once were. Part of the thing that used to throw me was, you know, as I heard crystalline energy, I would think of crystals, which are rock hard freaking solid, right? So I had this image that we were shifting from these like meaty substances to these brittle crystal beings, right? That we would turn into crystals. And I just couldn't figure that out. Now what I've come to understand is, you know, that true crystalline energy, fifth dimensional crystalline energy is like this liquid, light, crystalline form. It's like watery and malleable but brilliant and bright, and that's what we're shifting into, is that right now.
That's what it is. Yes, thank you. That's a great visual, because that's what it feels like when we go deep into, you know, leaving the 3D world and meditating into it. It feels very soft. And if we were to feel a crystal's consciousness, that's what it feels like, liquid light.
Yes, and sweet, that sweetness, and so focused and powerful, like a laser, you know, just so empowered and powerful.
Well, beautiful. That's what we are experiencing on this new timeline that we've been talking about in this episode. So for those who have joined us halfway in this, I do want to just say that the full process is what the Pleiadians recommend for truly transmuting. Nora, go over that one more time. Full, F-O-A-L.
Yes, this is the Pleiadians here. It's full, F-O-A-L. The first is feel, right? So in the moment, you just give yourself permission to feel whatever it is you're feeling without judgment. That's primary, right? I'm going to feel it. I'm going to feel my big, bad, ugly, messy self right now in this moment, and not call it big, bad, ugly, and messy. I'm just going to be with it. Here I am, feeling this, whatever it is. Then the second piece is the O, which is you begin to observe yourself as you're feeling, which brings your fifth dimensional consciousness or your higher self online. So you're feeling, your ego self is feeling, your 5D self is observing and supporting, which immediately softens the feeling experience. Then you step into acceptance, which is the A. I'm going to accept myself. So both your 3D and your 5D consciousness accept yourself right in the moment as you are, which then activates an automatic transmission of unconditional love, but we used L instead of U, right? And Nora wants to mention that she began to give the process, we began to give the process, and then somebody actually gave the acronym to Nora, somebody who'd been listening to her work, Alexandra. So thank you to Alexandra for that acronym, right? That came from a listener. So that activates this automatic transmission of unconditional love that goes to any version of you in any moment in time that needs it, including the origination of the trauma, which more than likely happened many, 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 many lifetimes ago. I find it to be, and I'm hearing back from people. You know, I share it all the time, and on Facebook a lot. Quite often on Facebook, I hear from people that, you know, that full for them has really been life changing. That, and you'll hear it again and again in my package. You know, the Pleiadians walk it again and again because it's just so effective.
Yes, really powerful. It's alchemical, right? So that's good.
Yes.
All right. So there is someone who, you know, there's a lot of people who they have angst coming up, or they're nervous about situations in their life, or they're even fearful. And so let's talk about how we would use full for that. There is someone who types in that this week discovered that 2 of the male family members are using illegal drugs. One of them is living next door to me. The other is the father of 2 of my grandchildren and living with them. My main feeling is betrayal and disgust. And of course, I'm really scared for my daughter and grandchildren. How can I rise above these chaotic feelings? And how do I carry on? I don't feel safe.
Yes, all right. This is the Pleiadians here. So yes, full is an excellent vehicle for what you are experiencing, right? So the first step is to really fully feel your anxiety and your fear. You have a fear on your world that if you really let yourself feel your fear, you're going to create a whole bunch of bad shit. Look, the bad shit's already happening, right? It's happening. You've acknowledged it. Look at that. Look what's happening. All right, good. I can feel my fear, and it's not going to make more bad shit happen. The more bad shit happens when you have repressed fear that you don't give yourself permission to look at, and that repressed fear starts to replicate itself all around you in more bad shit, right? So you let yourself have your feeling state here. Run the process of full. Take yourself then to the activation of joy within yourself. And from that joyful place, you simply begin to follow the breadcrumbs. This is the process we like to give when any of you are trying to work your way through anything in your lives, whether it be the creation of a new project that you're feeling excited about or the dealing with major conflict, right, like you're talking about. So you run your own process of full, take yourself out of the victim place. We heard some victim stuff there, right? So you've got to look at, all right, I'm a creator being, right? So yes, I'm feeling my betrayal, and that is fine. You have to feel it. And you also have to say, I'm not a victim, I'm a creator being, right? So feeling your betrayal fully and folding your way through your feelings of betrayal puts you in your sovereign identity. Staying in betrayal keeps you in the victim state. So using full is a method, an alchemical process, as you said, Loren. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. It's an alchemical process for moving you out of victimhood and into your sovereign state, into your creator being state and identity. So you use that, then you activate whatever it is you need to activate from within. Compassion, right? Compassion is huge for you all. Activate compassion in your heart chakras, right? In that moment. So activate compassion in your heart chakra, and then just ask to be shown, meaning ask your higher self to start to show you the very next action you need to take. And this is what we define as following the breadcrumbs, right? So you're probably just going to know the one thing to do. Maybe it's, I need to have a conversation with this person now. Now that I'm sane again and centered and balanced, I can have a conversation with my daughter, right? Okay, so maybe that's the next action you take. Maybe it's something else altogether. We don't know what it will be, right? And then as you're either within the midst of that action or you've completed that action, then you'll know the next thing to do, right? And we don't want you to know everything that you're supposed to do because that keeps you in the third dimension on linear time. We want you to exist in the moment with your intention clear to be of service from a space of compassion and unconditional love and follow the breadcrumbs.
That's very empowering. Okay. Very empowering, and it's a tool for sovereignty and claiming our mastery, really, because we just have to get settled with that and remove those programmings and fears. So perfect. Thank you so much for that. I know that's very helpful. Okay. Well, Nora, there's one question I'd love to have you end with, but before we get there, I want you to talk about your special offer, because there's so many transmissions that come from the Pleiadians, and you've included that in your special offer, but you've also got a telewebinar coming up too.
Yes. So the package consists of my next monthly teleconference and webcast, which is on Tuesday, October 2nd at 5 p.m. Pacific time. It's a 90-minute program. The Pleiadians will channel lecture-style format for the first half hour or so, and then we'll do an hour of Q&A with all participants. That's recorded, so if you can't attend live, you get the recording as well as part of the package. The next item, so that'll be in the moment, here's what's happening right now. We've just gone through the autumnal equinox, which is next week. I can't believe we didn't even speak about that, because this is another huge gateway that we're walking through, the equinox on the 22nd. So this will follow the equinox, so we'll do some kind of post-equinox conversation and how we can start to implement those energies that come through on the equinox gateway. Then there is the crystalline light body activation that I was speaking about earlier. That includes, I think it includes music from John, my partner. To be honest, I can't really remember if he did music for that one or not. He has done music for a lot of my transmissions, so that may or may not have music from John. And then there are 8 transmissions from the Pleiadians, which have taken place over the course of the last year. The first starting in August of 2017, and the last one was our Love and Laugh Fest, which just happened August 23rd of 2018. Let me tell you, the Love and Laugh Fest is one of the most powerful transmissions to date from the Pleiadians. They integrated into Foal, the system of Foal, the experience of 5D laughter, and how the experience of 5D laughter, when you're in that observational space, even accelerates even more the transmutation of trauma and the use of that. It was a really, really, it was a really fun and powerful event. It was one that John and so my husband John has been participating more in my events as moderator and commenting at times, and has even offered some channeling himself, and you'll see that here in some of the descriptions. Cool. There was a great one he and I did on relationships back in February, and it was about all kinds of relationships, called Relating in the New Reality, whether they be love relationships, romantic relationships, sibling relationships, family relationships, friends. That was a fantastic program, and he brought through the Cassiopeians on that one, who offered just such a beautiful perspective on how to relate to others that we are in disagreement with. I so loved their take on that and John's transmission on that. And there are many, many others that y'all can, I don't want to run down all of them. It'll take forever. Y'all can take some time here and take a look at the descriptions. And I share in this way because I have so benefited from the Pleiadians' presence in my life, their words, their energy, their love, and there's a lot of content in this offer, and I just want you all to have it. So.
Yes, thank you for that. It really is full of a lot of programs and beautiful transmissions, and it's all available there. There's a special offer link on this webpage. We invite everyone to check that out and see if that resonates with you and how you'd like to work with these energies and really work with this alchemical process that is given to us by the Pleiadians. Okay, well, all right, our last question then, it would be about the equinox and this powerful gateway. Can the Pleiadians offer us some insight for this gateway and how we can maximize it for our lives?
Yes, what you're going to find occurring for you all, most of you will experience it on the 22nd of September, some of you on the 23rd, depending on where you are on your world. what you're going to find, but what you're going to find really, it of course doesn't just happen on that day or during that exact moment. There's a window of opportunity here, and you're already in that window. So you're doing some preliminary work right now in even accelerating your transmutation of trauma process so you can best benefit from the equinox transmission. So don't be surprised if you find yourself really triggered or activated over the next week or so. It's all just to help you take in more easily and on a deeper level the codes and energy that will come in during the equinox that are going to help you sync up even more fully with this elevated timeline. So even though you landed on the elevated timeline on August 11th with that solar eclipse, you're all kind of still moving around, bouncing back and forth, and you can feel it in yourselves, right? Where you have these moments and breakthroughs of like incredible hopefulness suddenly, where things have been looking pretty dark and hard, and then suddenly you're like, yeah, wow, look at that. And then maybe a few hours later, the next day, you're kind of back in that lower vibratory rate, right? And if you find yourself in the lower vibratory rate in place, that's where you need to run full. Don't ignore it. Don't get mad at yourself for dropping your vibration or frequency. You've done it because you have trauma to transmute, right? And then, okay, I'm back in the elevated place again. So once you transit through the equinox gateway, which will continue for some time after the equinox itself, you're going to find yourself really syncing up with this elevated timeline and beginning to physically manifest in your day-to-day experience even more the energy and evidence of this higher timeline. Now, like we said, you're probably not really going to see the collective evidence of it on the bigger stage until after the winter solstice going into February of 2019, right? It's funny how this is, Nora, they always talk about how they don't like to predict, and I hate hearing myself say, right, that February of 2019, see, I'm saying it again, and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to say that. What if I'm wrong, right? What if they're wrong? And, hey, we could totally be wrong, right? Because as creator beings, we could completely change all of this. But from where we're sitting right now, February of 2019, that feels like a big deal to me.
Okay. And that's right around the corner, actually. It's going to be here in the blink of an eye.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's all trauma that we are transmuting. If we can just keep our eye on the beautiful prize of higher self-embodiment, once we can get these vibrations, these lower vibrations out, I know that powerful tool of full is going to be extremely helpful, even when we look at something like, in my world, beautiful state of Colorado and the fracking that's going on. And when I drive to the airport and I see those fracking fields, I feel that in my body. But yet this is the work, and it's not just a cop-out, because once we are able to get this out of our body, solutions come in.
That's right. Yes.
Beautiful.
Because we're still creating from the trauma, which is why the fracking is happening in the first place, right? So as that trauma is transmuted and we're in a clearer, more sovereign space, then those higher ways of accessing energy make themselves known to us as a reflection of our own higher consciousness.
That cannot happen soon enough, this new energy.
No shit, lady.
and the way that we can clean up the ocean in just a couple of days with the technology.
I hear ya.
And all of us who are listening to this program, we hold the vision of New Earth with these technologies in the forefront here and now. And so let's just hold that vision. Hold it. Oh, Nora Herold and the Pleiadians, the Pleiadian collective in this call. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to give you a moment to say any comforting words as we wrap it up.
This is the Pleiadians here. We love you. We love you. We love you. We are always with you, always available to you. All you need to do is put your attention on our presence. Yes, this is Nora. I love you all as well. Loren, I love you. Thank you for having me on. Thank you all who are tuning in. Thank you all who will be tuning in. Thank you.
Nora, thank you so much for being here. We'll have you back again. And here we are. We're just given some beautiful tools. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Loren.
Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.